Conventional medicine has gotten us used to treating the symptoms of these, and they're not talking about the root cause. Many parents and families have tried getting to the root cause, only to end up in this endless loop of where am I going wrong? Hello, and welcome to the Well Adjusted Chiropractor Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Broadman, and I am a chiropractic student specializing in neurologically focused care for pediatrics and families. We talk all things nervous system and chiropractic to family health and personal growth. I am so excited you're here. Let's get started. All right, podcast listeners, I am super excited for today's episode because we are going to be breaking down the science of stress, how it affects our bodies and our kids' bodies, and then guess what? How to resolve that stress and then move to that regulated, supported nervous system from a holistic and drug-free perspective. And I'm going to warn you, we're going to be going deep into the science because I know for so many of you, you are getting tired of conventional medicine giving you superficial responses, slapping labels on all of your symptoms, and never talking about the root cause. I think that we need to be talking deep on the fundamentals and the foundations of health and healing in the nervous system to be able to start supporting ourselves from that inside out. And honestly, this was one of the things that I wish that someone had explained to me before chiropractic school. Because once I started understanding the nervous system and actually how it worked, I couldn't stop seeing it everywhere because suddenly the symptoms that seemed so completely unrelated started making so much more sense. So my hope is that by the end of today's episode, you'll start looking at your own health differently or your child's health just a little bit differently. So get ready, get locked in. If you're watching the video version of this, you can already see that I'm standing, I'm ready. I mean business when I stand because I need all the oxygen and blood flow to my brain to be able to talk about this and connect this to you guys. So let's get into it. I will say one of the things that I have been noticing on my journey to becoming a neurologically focused pediatric and family chiropractor is the unfortunate rise in ADHD, sensory processing challenges, delayed motor stones, chronic stress, poor sleep, digestive issues, emotional dysregulation, and the list goes on. And many of you, that's why you're here today. Maybe you are a parent wondering why your child can't settle down, or they can't sleep, or they seem overwhelmed so easily. Or maybe you're an adult. Maybe you have been told everything looks normal, yet you still don't feel like yourself. Because conventional medicine has gotten us used to treating the symptoms of these, and they're not talking about the root cause. Many parents and families have tried getting to the root cause. They've been trying to change their diets. They've been trying to add supplements, decreasing their medications, or adding therapies, only to end up in this endless loop of where am I going wrong? I think that we need to be starting from the beginning on how did this get started? And then we can get to the fixing aspect of it. Because what I've been learning from chiropractic school and my preceptorship at PwC under Dr. Tony Ebel and his team is that it all points to one thing, starting from the beginning. Because we need to start from the beginning on how that stress first started, the first occurrence of it, and how it affected our child's nervous system or your nervous system from that neurological and physiological perspective. So let me walk you through this. When our autonomic and central nervous system perceives stress over time, it can begin operating from a protective state rather than that growth and regulated state. So instead of prioritizing restoration, healing, digestion, healthy adaptation, the body begins prioritizing survival. So when I say autonomic nervous system, I am talking about the part of your nervous system that controls all the things that you don't consciously think about, such as your heart rate, breathing, digestion, immune function, blood pressure, hormone regulation, anything and everything between those sentences. It is all done automatically by your nervous system. And it does this through two different branches. So the first one being the sympathetic nervous system. So this is your body's fight, flight, or freeze response. It is designed to help you survive. So your heart rate goes up, your breathing becomes quicker, blood flow shifts towards all your big muscles, digestion slows down, and your body prepares to respond to a challenge. And maybe you've experienced this yourself. You finally get home after a long day, you sit on the couch, and instead of relaxing, Your mind keeps racing. You keep overthinking. You find yourself wishing that you said things differently, planned things differently, or maybe you're thinking about the next day of what do I need to do next? And for children, maybe your child is absolutely exhausted, but somehow becomes more hyper right before bed. All of these moments are where we start wondering, is the nervous system having a harder time shifting gears? And I want to say this, it's not a bad thing. We actually need that healthy sympathetic response. Because like, for an example, if you're about to slam on your brakes to avoid a car accident, or if you're me taking a biochemistry exam, you want the sympathetics to kick in. But once that danger and that situation has passed, we want to be able to switch gears. So that's where the other branch comes in, the parasympathetic nervous system. This is often called our rest, digest, regulate, and restore state. So this is where we digest our food, repair tissues, regulate our immune system, support healthy hormone function, and recover from the stresses of everyday life. Because a healthy nervous system isn't stuck in one state or another. It is flexible because it knows when to step on the gas or it knows when to hit the brakes. But here's the big thing. The problem is that many people and many kids today are not just experiencing these moments of stress. They are living in them 24/7, constant. And when that happens, our nervous system adapts into those stress patterns, making it harder to return into that restorative parasympathetic state. And I know for me, I was on the constant go state of stress in chiropractic school because I remember thinking and feeling of like that stressful feeling that it was normal because I studied, I took my exams and my boards, and guess what? I got right back into the next set of exams and boards. I kept pushing and I never stopped. And I didn't realize how easy it was to get into living in survival mode until I started actually feeling what regulation actually feels like, hence getting out of chiropractic school and into preceptorship. All in all, we have a term for this. It is called a subluxation. So that's just like a fancy word of describing stress that has become stored within the nervous system and our neurospinal system. So that the brain, the spinal cord, this makes it more difficult for the brain and the body to communicate efficiently. Because if we remember, our nervous system coordinates the functions of breathing, heart rate, digestion, and everything else. So what could this mean? It means when the nervous system stays chronically stressed in that protective mode, we begin seeing poor sleep, gut issues, emotional dysregulation, immune dysfunction, increased muscle tension, and a body that doesn't respond to stress very well. And guess what? For our kiddos especially, it becomes much more harder for them to grow and to develop and to move and thrive the way that God designed them to. And that is where we start seeing the latching issues, the colicky babies, the ADHD, the OCD, the digestive disorders, the anxiety, and fill in the blank. So if you're following along, you're probably thinking, okay, Sarah, if the nervous system gets stuck in stress, how do we actually help it get unstuck? I think that is one of the most exciting questions that we can ask. And that brings me to like one of my favorite parts of the neuroscience, the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the 10th of our 12 cranial nerves, and it's also called the wandering nerve because of how extensively it travels throughout the body. So the vagus nerve starts in the brainstem, and it travels through all of our major organs. And it innervates the heart, the lungs, the diaphragm, and the stomach, and the list goes on. That is why it has such a powerful influence on things like breathing, digestion, heart rate, and calming the body. And you know, one of the big things that wasn't talked about enough in my neuroanatomy classes, all 30 weeks of my neuroanatomy classes, is that around 80% of the fibers within the vagus nerve are afferent, meaning they are carrying information from the body back up to the brain, not the other way around. Because think about that for a second. Most of us imagine the brain constantly telling the body what to do. But neurologically, the brain is first acting as an interpreter because it's constantly receiving sensory information and it's asking, what's happening? Am I safe? How should I respond? That incoming information is what we call afferentation, sensory input traveling into the central nervous system. So sensory input from what? Every movement, every breath, every hug, every sound, every touch, every one of those experiences travels through the nervous system into areas in your brain for it to sense and then interpret your body and the environment around you. So the quality of the brain's output really does depend on the quality of its input. So in simple terms, garbage in, garbage out. And I tell you, this honestly stopped me in my tracks during chiropractic school because I remember thinking, why did no one explain the nervous system to me like this before? Because if better input creates better output, suddenly movement matters more, sleep matters more, touch matters more, and chiropractic makes more sense. Everything starts connecting together. So whether it's stress from birth trauma, environmental toxins, or physical stress, those good sensory signals become less efficient. So keep in mind that the brain is still receiving information, but now it's making decisions from information that isn't clear or organized as it should be. So instead of receiving that good proprioceptive input, the nervous system begins receiving more bad, stressful input called nociceptive input or nociception. So think about it like noise. So let me give you an analogy. Let's say you're having a conversation at a concert, which I don't know why you would be talking at a concert when you should be jamming out and rocking out, but let's just say the person next to you is still talking. You're trying to listen, but there's so much background noise that you have to work 10 times harder just to understand each other. Because you repeat yourself, you miss words, you fill in the gaps. Everything becomes much more difficult to have a conversation than what it should be. So that is nociception. And that is why I also tell people that the body isn't broken, because it's adapting, it's doing what it should be. But sometimes when it adapts well, but sometimes it also adapts in a way that isn't serving us well anymore. So if chronic stress can teach the nervous system unhealthy patterns, can it learn healthier patterns? Absolutely yes. And this is where we bring in the term neuroplasticity. Now don't worry, it's not as hard to understand as what it sounds like. So let me break it down for you. Neuro meaning brain, plasticity meaning plastic. So the brain is plastic, it's malleable, it's adaptable, and it's forever changing in accordance to the environment around us. And that's incredibly hopeful because guess what? The nervous system isn't necessarily stuck where it is today because your brain is constantly learning from every experience and every moment and every stressor and every sensory signal coming into it. So how do we begin giving the brain better information? So this is where neurologically focused chiropractic fits into the equation, because what makes it so unique is that we don't just ask, where does it hurt? Because although this does give us that good clinical information, it isn't all of it. We go so in depth in our history to be able to answer, how did this nervous system get stuck here? And honestly, this is one of my favorite parts of caring for families and connecting with families, because each family tells a different story, because every nervous system has a different story. So by in depth, I mean back to square one. When did the nervous system get stuck in stress, and what was that stress? Because what was pregnancy like for mom? Was she stressed? How was the birth process? Were there interventions or complications? Were there toxins, and what kind of toxins were there that we could have been exposed to? Or even talking about childhood and development, how was eating, sleeping, and pooping? Were they on track? Were there feeding and latching issues? Were there reoccurring ear infections, sensitivities to touch or smells, temper tantrums, motor delays, and then any signs of ADHD, ADD, OCD, digestive issues, social anxiety, everything. And sometimes I joke, we're basically nervous system detectives, because each and every question we get gives us another clue on how this person's nervous system has adapted over time. So after we get that detailed clinical case history, we need to look inside the nervous system, because symptoms only tell us a part of the story. Because, two people can have anxiety, or two kids could have poor sleep, yet their nervous systems may be functioning very differently. And now here's where things really got exciting for me in chiropractic school, because I realized we weren't just asking great questions. We actually had a way to objectively measure how someone's nervous system is adapting. So this is where we bring bring in the insight scans. These scans are completely non-invasive. They're Bluetooth based, so they don't introduce anything into the body like x-rays with the radiation. So instead, they provide that objective information about how well the nervous system is adapting and functioning, so we have a starting point. So let me walk you through these. The first one is the heart rate variability. And despite its name, it's actually not measuring how healthy your heart is. It's actually helping us understand how you or your child's nervous system is adapting. We want to see variability of the intervals of your heart rate because that shows us that there's a good balance between that stress response and that regulated response. That measurement gives us that valuable insight. So instead of guessing how stressed you or your child's nervous system is, we have that objective information to guide our approach to care. So for an example, if someone's nervous system appears stuck in a heightened stress response, we may choose lighter neurological adjustments designed to encourage regulation and calming. Whereas if a person's nervous system appears exhausted, less responsive, or struggling to adapt, we may choose a different style of adjustment that provides a stronger neurological stimulus. The second scan is the neurothermal scan. So as we gently roll the scanner along your spine, it measures the small temperature differences on either side. So those differences can reflect changes in the nervous system activity, and it helps us identify areas where neurological communication may not be functioning as efficiently. And lastly, our third scan is the EMG or the electromyography. It measures the electrical activity of the muscles that run along your spine. So in other words, it helps us to see how hard the muscles are working to stabilize and protect the spine. Because when the nervous system has been under stress for a long period of time, those muscles begin compensating. So some may become over tense and guarded, which you've probably seen in yourself, where your shoulders and your neck are so tense after a long stressful day. And those other muscles, they become fatigued or less responsive. And we see this a lot in kiddos with like anxiety, autism, digestive issues, because they tend to slouch. They're really tired in their posture. This EMG gives us that additional objective measurement of how the neuromuscular system is adapting. So when we combine the history along with the HRV, the neurothermal scan, the EMG, we are able to build an individualized care plan. So remember when we talked about neuroplasticity, so the nervous system learns through repetition? This means it also relearns through repetition. So can I just say something real quick? I think that this is one of the most hopeful concepts in all of neuroscience because it means today's stress patterns don't necessarily have to be tomorrow's patterns. And I think that's incredibly encouraging for parents and for kids and honestly for every single one of us. That is why care plans are often designed over a period of time. The nervous system didn't learn these patterns overnight, so we don't expect it to relearn healthier ones overnight either, meaning healing takes time and healing takes frequency. All right, the exciting part, the adjustment, or I should say adjustments because of the care plan. There's multiple adjustments, momentum, but remember when earlier we talked about the afferentation, so information coming into our brain? This is the heart of every adjustment. So our nervous system and the vagus nerve respond very well to proprioception, good input, which means touch and movement. And what better way to get good organized input into our nervous system to activate that vagus nerve than the neurospinal system itself? So when a neurological adjustment is made at that primary area of the nervous system that is fixated, distorted, and stressed that we found during our history and our scans, it sends a burst of sensory information up through the neurospinal system and into the brain. So locally, this increases blood flow and oxygen to that distorted, stressful area. It releases the subluxation, so that stress stuck on, and it clears that distorted bad input called nociception, or that noise. And altogether, this globally gives the brain an opportunity to reorganize those stress patterns into regulated patterns. So take one step back and think about that. Notice how the adjustment isn't doing the healing. Your very nervous system is. Is the adjustment treating anything? Absolutely not, because it is getting your nervous system to regulate and work better, leaving you or your child in a more regulated, healthier state to be able to do the healing. So when you and your family begin supporting your nervous system from the inside out and regulating it, it builds stability. When there is stability, we can take on so much more, because healing, yes, it is not linear. It's rarely just one thing, because it's not just nutrition. It's not just movement. It's not just gut health. It's not just hormone health. It's not just sleep. Even though all of them are incredibly important, it is the order in which we do them. So it's just like building a house. You don't start with the roof. You have to start with the foundation, and then you frame the house. Then you add the walls. Then you add the ugly pink color that sometimes people paint their houses. I don't know. But every part matters. So if we can begin prioritizing and building a nervous system that is more resilient, more adaptable, and better regulated, we create a stronger foundation for everything else we do to support our family's health and healing. From therapy programs, nutrition, supplements, movement, sleep, digestion, whatever it may be, every one of those becomes another healthy input, helping shape the way our nervous system learns, adapts, and heals. Okay, big breath there. So as we wrap up today's conversation, I just want to say props to you guys for sticking through it and learning more about your nervous systems and supporting you and your family's health. If you found today's conversation helpful, I'd love it if you'd share this episode with a friend or a family member who could benefit from learning from it too. And if you're wanting to dive deeper into the neuroscience and the research behind what we've talked about, I've linked some of my favorite resources in the show notes, including articles and educational content. And if you are looking for a neurologically focused pediatric and family chiropractor, I've also included the PX Docs directory in the show notes so you can find a doc near you. Or if you are around the Tiffin, Ohio area, you can come see me. But until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, keep asking great questions, and never stop being curious and listening to your gut on how there are answers out there for you and your family's health struggles, because I truly believe that God designed our bodies with the incredible capacity to adapt and heal. So, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.